Okay, today's lesson is going to be on quadratic transformations and how your parabola, your U-shaped graph, can compress, stretch, shift, and translate. It will also reflect over the x-axis. So the first thing we need to look at is we need to look at our vertex form of our equation. That's where we are going to be able to see these transformations very easily and very quickly. So I want to talk about your A coefficient. You already know that if A is positive, it's going to open up. And if A is negative, it's going to cause your parabola to open down. But what I really want you to notice is that if your A value gets bigger, so if it starts at one number and the next time you have a graph and you're comparing and your A value has grown or gotten larger, it is actually going to cause your parabola to expand or stretch. And you're going to see that in a narrowing. Okay, it's going to get really skinny. If your A starts off as a big number and then gets smaller, it's going to cause your parabola to get wider. And that's how the two graphs would compare. Think of your A coefficient like your slope on a line, except the slope on the parabola is going to cause it to either get really skinny, aka narrow, or fatter, aka wider. Okay? Your H, that's the number inside, that's going to cause a horizontal change. So remember these letters IHOD? We talked about this with linear equations before Christmas. I stands for inside, so it's the number being added or subtracted inside the parentheses. And the H stands for horizontal to remind me that this change is going to be left or right. O is to remind me that it's going to do the opposite of what I am trained to think. When I see plus a number, I think right. But it's really going to do the opposite and moves that parabola left. And then if I see minus a number, it's going to, again, I think minus being left on a coordinate plane, but it's really going to cause it to move right. And then D stands for your domain. So what does the K number do? It tells you your vertical change, so it's going to move that parabola up or down. O stands for outside, so we're really looking at that number being added or subtracted after the parentheses squared. And again, that's going to cause your parabola to either move up or down. And E, it's going to do exactly what you think. So if you are adding a number after the parentheses squared, it's going to move up. If you're subtracting a number, it's going to move it down. And then again, this is just the R is to remind you that these are range Y values. So you've got IHOD over, and hopefully some of this sounds familiar to you. And then you've got your A. All right, let's look at if these are the changes that are happening to my parabola, where is the starting point? So we want to talk about x squared. This is your parent function. This is where all parabolas start. And if you notice, it has a vertex at the origin, and its axis of symmetry is x equals 0 because it has to pass through the vertex. Okay? The A coefficient is a positive 1, which means it's going to open upward. And if we look at the domain and range of this parent function, it is going to be all real numbers because it's going to go all the way to the left and all the way to the right. It's going to use every x on the number line. And then the range is y is greater than or equal to 0 because the lowest point goes on the y-axis. It goes as far down as 0. And these arrows tells me that it continues to go up. It never stops going up. And it's got to have a bar making it or equal to because there is a solid point at the vertex where it is the lowest point, the minimum. Now we're going to look at some examples to see how can I use this information to help me identify changes or transformations that are happening to my quadratic graph.